Sure. Well, it's a interesting path. I didn't expect to find myself in this role. If you go all the way back, my formal background is actually in fine art, and I lived in
Oh,
Baltimore, Maryland, for about a decade, and I was pursuing an MFA degree there, which I did receive, and had a whole second life as an artist in galleries and museums and all kind of stuff.
hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is Vincent Valerio. Vincent is the Director of Education and Children's Services at Portage County Board of Development Disabilities in Ravenna, Ohio. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
So, Vincent, tell us a little bit about your career and how you became the Director of Education and Children's Services, and then tell us a little bit about Portage County.
Sure. Well, it's a interesting path. I didn't expect to find myself in this role. If you go all the way back, my formal background is actually in fine art, and I lived in
Oh,
Baltimore, Maryland, for about a decade, and I was pursuing an MFA degree there, which I did receive, and had a whole second life as an artist in galleries and museums and all kind of stuff.
Masters of Fine
But
Arts, is that what it was? MFA?
yeah,
Yeah.
sculpture, yeah, a
Oh,
master's of
neat,
fine art, yeah,
neat.
and sculpture was my area of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which was fun and exciting, and a lot of great stories I can share unrelated to what we're going over now. But as fun as and exciting as that is, it doesn't always pay the bills great. So I was looking for other work, and there was a school, a specialized school in Maryland that worked with kids on the autism spectrum, and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted somebody that had more industry experience to lead their wood shop and
Oh,
help
neat.
build. Yeah, they had like a vocational training program, and wood shop was one of the trades. And then they also wanted that person to help build all the sets and props for their school plays that they put on. And I said, well, I could do that. I said, I don't know much about working with kids with autism, but I could do that part. And they agreed to give me a chance, and I learned a lot doing that, and I really loved it and found it rewarding, and then just never left the world and continued to get other experiences, other job opportunities, other trainings under my belt, until eventually I moved back to Ohio, where I'm originally from, and now here we are at the Portage County Board of Developmental Disability. So it's been an interesting, non-traditional path into where I am right
Yeah.
now.
So, did you have to go back to school then as well?
So I did not go back to school. In Ohio, there is an alternative administrative license path to get
Okay.
like a school principal license. So prior to working at the county board, I was the official job title was a director, but it was essentially a school principal for a specialized high behavior needs school program up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I went through the Ohio Department of Education and the alternative admin license path to get licensed and credentialed as a principal.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and did that for a couple of years until I ended up having the opportunity to go over to Portage County.
Awesome. So, tell us a little bit about what Portage County does.
Yeah, so Ohio is unique from other states in their developmental disability world. In Ohio, instead of one state government entity that oversees all of disability services, there are individual county boards that are their own governing body that handle it per county. So in Ohio, there's 88 counties, and I work for one of those counties, Portage County. Um, and anybody in Portage County that would be deemed eligible for services, our job is to help determine that eligibility and provide them the supports they need. So that's the whole lifespan, birth to death. We do it all. So, and my role specifically is with youth. So I work from birth to age 21, essentially. Anybody within Portage County that falls in that age range typically then falls under my jurisdiction to some degree or another.
So, you're writing policy a lot then, is that correct?
Well, not so much writing policy. The state, there's still the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities that puts out the policy,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
it's up to the individual county boards to read and interpret that policy and implement it as such. So we have some creative license, so to speak, with how we handle things per county. And then, there's state mandated services of things that we have to do absolutely at a bare minimum. And then there are other things that each county could choose to do with their own local tax levy dollars based on what they feel is needed and beneficial in their community.
So you're supporting the school districts then?
My role specifically, yes. So I'm
Okay.
kind of a liaison with the public school districts. In Portage County, there's 11 public school districts. And to some capacity or another, we work with just about all of them. So I provide training to the staff. I do crisis intervention training for their staff and behavioral de-escalation training. We have a lending library of customized, specialized adaptive equipment that we could loan out to schools and classrooms as needed. We have a variety of outreach service programs that we offer to the school districts. And we also oversee and facilitate a summer camp as well that is available to those in our county. And all these things that I just mentioned, we do free of charge. There's no fee for the services. It's paid for out of our local tax levy dollars.
Gotcha. Okay. So, so all of the schools are very much aware of the availability and what you have, and because it's at a county level, you can tailor it to each school based on
Correct.
what they need, right?
Correct. Yes. And as far as the communication and making people aware, that's always an ongoing challenge and thing to do because so when I started at Portage County, at the time I wasn't in the director role. I was in a educational services manager was the official title, and it was a new position they created with visions for the future. My job was to kind of plan what the next set of years looked like for Portage County and working with youth, because some county boards actually run their own specialized schools as well. And the government stuff gets tricky because there's the Ohio Department of Education, and then there's the Department of Developmental Disabilities, which are two separate entities. So you have two different bodies kind of overseeing depending on what you're doing. And so Portage County used to run a school program that was geared towards medically fragile individuals. And over the years, for a variety of reasons, the public schools were doing a much better job of helping support those kids in-house. There is another also specialized program in Portage County that supports medically fragile youth. So it wasn't as much of a needed service. So when I was originally hired, there was maybe only 6 or 7 kids left, which is a classroom, not a school, And so the goal was, how can we better support the schools and the youth? What does the community need? And so that's what I did. I just went out and started talking and shaking hands and introducing myself to all the special services directors in the public schools, getting feedback from them, and then we created all of our new programming and supports based off that feedback. And then the handful of kids that were left either graduated out or we helped them transition with support back into their public school.
Gotcha. So do you provide special education staffing at all? Is that part of what you do, or is that mostly held at the?
Yeah, we don't actually provide staffing like on a contractual basis to the schools, but I have a team of staff that go out and provide sort of enrichment programming to the special ed program. So for example, we have a social emotional learning curriculum that I helped design. And I have a team of staff that will go out once a week to schools that are interested in participating, and we will do a lesson with the kids that cover all the social emotional learning topics and standards of learning and whatnot. So we also have transition aged programming as well, and that's a big collaborative effort. I have a transition coordinator on my team that helps with that. And then across our agency and other departments, we have a staff whose role is an employment coordinator, and she works with the community and local businesses to help them be more inclusive as employers and helping hire people with disabilities, and works with the case managers, which we call SSAs, which is a service support administrator. She works with them and their caseload of individuals and helping them on their path to employment and integrating into the community. So she also helps us with our transition age school programming because she'll set up business tours so we could take kids on field trips to learn what it's like to work at different places in the community, or community resources like the fire station and police station, and going to the library and setting up a library card, or setting up volunteer sites where we could get hands-on experience helping other organizations volunteering and getting a practice doing different valuable job skills. So that's been a really enriching collaborative program, and we've had a lot of positive feedback from that, because some of the school districts in Portage County are smaller rural districts. They don't have the same resources and manpower available to get their kids out into the community. Not some of these smaller rural schools, they don't even staff a transition coordinator. So for us, offering this as a free service to them has been a huge benefit for their staff and their kids. The fact that we'll go with our vehicles and pick them up, take them out into the community, it's been definitely a beneficial program.
Yeah, sounds like it. And that's the beauty of county programs like this, is that you can tailor it to the needs of that county. What is happening in that county, and what do you need? The needs of the county that you're at, Portage County, are not going to be the same as what they might be in Columbus or in Cincinnati or someplace like that.
Exactly. Even within our county, like, my staff that goes out and does the social emotional learning lessons, what they go over with a middle school class or an elementary class out in Windham, for example, which is one of our districts, looks totally different than if they're in Ravenna or if they're in Field, because the population is different, the needs of the kids are different. So we really tried, when I designed that curriculum, I tried to keep kind of a loose outline that allowed flexibility so that they could customize and tailor it based on the needs of the kids that they're working with.
I love that. Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, that people that are not in education do not understand those nuances. Like, they see kids and they say, this is the need. This is the need of these kids, and all these kids have this need. And that's not the reality of lots of different districts, and huge districts and tiny districts, and middle of the road, and rural and urban and suburban, and fantastic that you guys have that. And I love the fact that you're not just like, this is what we have, so this is what you get.
Right. No, and this is, I think this is the benefit of having a county board system the way Ohio does, is that every county has the creative freedom to kind of come up with programming and tailor it based on the needs of their population. So everything that I described, my entire department that I direct, this is all elective extra. It's not a state mandated service. So anything that we do is coming out of our local tax dollars. There's no state level reimbursement or anything for it. So it's, but it's super valuable, and we're out there in the community. We're getting people in front of us to understand who we are and what we do. We're benefiting the staff and the kids that need these services. So it's definitely important.
We all feel it. Students are struggling more than ever with emotional and behavioral challenges. Lighthouse Therapy offers virtual, hybrid, and in-person behavioral and mental health support that builds around your school environment. Our licensed professionals are trauma-informed, experienced, and trained to work with K-12 students and staff. You don't get a cookie-cutter approach. You get a partner who listens, adapts, and builds trust. Because when students feel safe and seen, they thrive. Learn how you can get support at your school at lighthouse-therapy.com/brighter together. Absolutely. And so when you're looking at like the next year, I know you had said you'd done some future planning. What kinds of things do you as a professional that's doing what you're doing? How do you decide, or what makes the cut and what doesn't make the cut?
Sure.
And how do you decide that?
Yeah. There's a lot of complicated things involved with what makes the cut or not, but I would say internally we have some different committees where we look at areas of need and determining what our strategies are going to be and how we fill those holes or fill the gaps where they're needed. Also, as far as the school outreach, we send out satisfaction surveys twice a year to all the schools and groups that we work with. so we get feedback from them on what's working, what's not working, what they would like to see in the future. That helps us plan how we're going. But the whole other half of my department that we didn't discuss is early intervention. So that's birth to age 3. I have a supervisor that handles that. We're kind of tag team, so she oversees all the day to day of early intervention. That was her world. She knows it in and out. She's doing a great job. And then as the director, I work with her and support as needed, but she's got that wrapped up. And then I handle all of the day to day for all the school outreach. So that's kind of how we work that. But I say all that because one of the things that we identified is there is sometimes a gap in supports for kids in that in between stage from like 3 to 5. So early intervention services, if you qualify for those, we have specialized trained staff that go out into the homes with the families. They work with the families. It's a collaborative team approach. There's therapists involved, speech, OT, PT, and then there is the other service providers as well. And they collaborate. They decide what these kids need in their home, and they work with the families in a coaching model to help the families support those kids kind of pick up and improve on whatever milestones they might have, slight delays in. Early intervention is proven to be super beneficial because, if you get in early, then it's less stress on the individual and the system down the road. But one of the gaps we identified is that 3 to 5 range, because early intervention cuts off at 3. Schools sometimes determine they don't need extra support in preschool, and then any potential supports on the school side of things doesn't really pick up till 5. So then we have some of these kids that kind of fall through the cracks that are in between. So that's one of the areas where we've looked at how can we collaborate across departments within the county and find other ways to try to better support that age range.
Yeah, and they're on an IFSP, right? An individualized
Correct.
family
support
plan. That's been thank you.
Yes.
But then at 3, after they turn 3 and go into the 3 to 5, if they have special education and have been identified, then they go into an IEP, an individualized education plan, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
But some of those kids, even though they qualified and had an IFSP in early intervention, some of the public schools, when they go through and do the ETR and all their assessments to determine if they're going to be eligible for an IEP, sometimes they say no, that they don't think they need it. And that's all obviously sometimes a subjective debate.
Yeah.
So and there's other funding
go,
things that go into those decisions that maybe always shouldn't, but it happens.
What about MTSS then, multi-tiered system of support? Is that part of what you're doing with the 3 to 5-year-olds, or is it more like RTI kind of? I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, but what does that program look like for those 3 to 5-year-olds?
Yeah, well, we don't really have a formal program at this point. We've kind of identified that that's a gap, and I know that our early intervention supervisor has worked with our SSA department to try to kind of create a pipeline, so that way if there are kids at 3 that they feel like are going to need additional support, they could at least get connected with our service and support administrators and kind of get the ball rolling to get into our system and have that case management support, so they could follow them and support them through the school process, if the families are going to fight for an IEP or whatnot.
And is that usually done, like if you're doing things like that, is it usually done like at the school district, or is it done like at home? How are you, what's your thoughts as far as, I know you don't have it yet, but you need it, but what is your thoughts as far as like what does that program kind of look like? Is it, because 0 to 3 is mostly at home, right? Or in a preschool kind of setting sometimes.
Right.
But,
some natural setting, right?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. If that kid was in a preschool program, we could provide support there. I know some other counties in Ohio, they have within their SSA departments, they have special SSAs that are kind of an in-between support case manager from early intervention to regular school age case management, and they kind of follow those kids along through those couple of years, make sure that they're getting whatever resources and things they could in that time frame, probably in most cases in the home setting, uh, and then helping with that transition to school when the time comes.
Yeah, and then it goes a little bit from just a coaching model to a kind of a blended kind of thing. You're right in my wheelhouse. So that's why I'm asking, because this is stuff that we definitely do and I have done.
Yeah.
Is just like where does it you have that coaching model and it's so important and helping the parents to understand what they need to do to help their child. But then they get to that 3 to 5, and now it's like, well, now there's a little bit more of an educational aspect of it, and what level is this child? We don't necessarily want to put this child on an IEP right at 3. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you don't have a choice. But sometimes, and it's evident, meaning, it's like this is a child that we know is going to need these services. But other kids, they do. And as a speech therapist, these are the kids that sometimes will fall through the cracks. And they'll have an articulation delay or a phonological process disorder. Here's the speech therapist again coming out of me. And, if we can remediate that, as long as it's a developmental problem, at 3 to 5, then they get to kindergarten and that problem's gone, right?
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, but it's hard. That's a hard in-between stage where there's not always clear funding and support to provide those services. And if it's just a speech delay, typically a lot of the schools don't want to jump to an IEP and to specialized early preschool programming because their resources are limited too, and there's only so many slots, and there may be other kids that have more complex needs, Yeah,
private practice picks up the slack there a lot.
Yeah.
In that 3 to 5 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I love it because it's like I don't get to do therapy anymore because I'm the CEO and I do the podcast. I just don't. I can't do both. It's like I can serve 3,800 kids through Lighthouse, or I can serve 55 kids as a speech therapist. I can't do both. So, but 32 years, it's just part of my DNA, right? It's just a part of who I am, and I love that because we do have programs similar to what you're talking about, where it's the multi-tiered system of support with school districts that have identified that they have this need, and we help them. And so it's really kind of you're preaching to the choir with me.
Yes.
That's awesome. I think that I'm excited for you guys because it's kids. We don't want kids to fall through the cracks. Nobody does. Nobody wants that.
No. No. Of course not. And I think what we're doing in Portage County is pretty unique. Especially with all of our school outreach stuff. That's not, from our experience and talking with other counties and seeing what other counties are doing, it's not typical to have that level of extensive outreach programs in collaboration with the schools. They either are running a school program themselves, or there's not the same level of school involvement, in the way that we have our programming. So I think there's a lot of good there, and we're just doing what we can to keep it going.
Awesome. So if people want to learn a little bit more about Portage, how do they find you?
Well, they could go to our website. We just did a whole new website revamp to be more accessible. So they could go to portagedd.org, and it'll have all of our different programs and services and ways to get in contact with us. Awesome. And we'll be happy to hear from you.
And Portage, for those of you that are listening and don't spell well like me, is Portage. Portage.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, Vincent, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, and just keep supporting those kids and those schools. They need it for sure.
We will do our best. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.